Hey, what's up? This is your host, Travis Jenkins. Welcome to the first episode of the Splice podcast. Today we're going to talk about some of the background on why I started this podcast, and then transition into talking about the problem with Stuffitis in American society, and asking the question of should we be worrying about how fast Amazon is growing? So let's start off by talking about why I decided to start this podcast. So let's begin by saying just a general statement on, in the 80s, you started a rock band to make a statement. And in the 2000s, you started a nonprofit to try and make a difference. And now it seems like all the millennials are very quickly jumping at, oh, I can get a mic and I can start a podcast and try and make a difference that way. So I figured I would follow the pack and start my own podcast. It's very easy for people nowadays to go to their echo chambers or a place that people turn to just to get their beliefs reinforced. Wherever that may be on the political side of the spectrum, whether right, left, or whether you're a dog lover or a cat lover or what have you. It seems like everybody just goes to their echo chambers nowadays and just hears or goes and searches for what they want to hear, and they're not open to having their views challenged. And so, it's no one wants to sit down and have a conversation with someone they know they disagree with. So that's what I want to try and start the show with, the premise of we need to actually have conversations about tough stuff, tough subjects, whether that be where you stand on a political issue, to maybe talking about some things that aren't readily available or not readily broadcasted, that you wouldn't see on your local news or national news for that matter. So kind of branching off of that point, it leads to, why am I calling this Splice? And no, it doesn't have anything to do with, I'm not a big fan of the horror movie called Splice. It's mainly because of the definition of, splicing two things together is taking two, let's just say we have a strand of rope, right? And we take two strands of rope and we kind of twist them around each other. We have spliced them together. So kind of using that as a metaphor for the kind of conversations that we need to have. We need to be okay with taking two different viewpoints and talking about them, bringing them into one conversation. Whether that's someone who has opposing views on something and we find a solution, or it's people that maybe are on the same side of an issue but have different solutions to a given problem. Now I want to try and list some of the ground rules for being on the podcast. Myself and other guests that I have on the show have to adhere to a couple of things, and that first is that there aren't going to be any racist, homophobic, intolerant comments in general that will be tolerated. The golden rule definitely applies here within the confines of this podcast. Treat others how you would want to be treated. And then the second thing is that if you bring some alternative facts, quote unquote, on set, be prepared to be called out on them. So to follow the ground rules, next come the warnings about myself and my personality is I am truly a sailor at heart. My very colorful vocabulary might slip out from time to time, and the emphasis on the might word there. I think you could probably underline that 3 times for people who truly know me. I'm going to tell you what I think and give my opinion on various topics, but I will also back up why I think the way I do. The last thing is, my jokes are terrible. They're never going to get any better. Some might liken them to probably the worst dad jokes you have ever heard. But what people don't realize is that I tell them because I have one rule basically for my jokes. And that is, I tell them because I know I will laugh at them. And that anybody else who laughs at them, even if it's a pity laugh, I accept those as well, is mainly a bonus. It's just a bonus. So now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about Stuffitis. We here in the United States have a public crisis, and I know I'm definitely being hyperbolic when I say that. It's nothing new. It's been here since capitalism has existed, and I'm, of course, talking about the concept of stuffitis. People may be better at hiding it than others, but it's something a majority of us suffer from to a certain degree. And you might be wondering, what the heck is stuffitis? Well, simply put, it is our insatiable need to buy things. It's why you love Amazon, which we'll get to later in the show. It's why people get excited about getting a package delivered to your doorstep. It's probably easiest to see in someone's garage or attic that it's all the things that have accumulated over the years of stuff that you thought you needed, but it was just a want, and then you end up not using it, and then it just goes to waste and doesn't get used. Now, I'm not the first person to bring this up. In fact, I'm borrowing the term stuffitis from a book that I read by the author by the name of Dave Ramsey. And in this book, Dave Ramsey pretty much says that, I'm quoting him here, the human spirit was not created to attain peace, contentment, or fulfillment by gathering more stuff. Having stuff is a symbol of social status, and I get that. And at least that's what a lot of us probably think too, I would imagine. Having a Corvette in your driveway or living in a 6,000 square foot house would give off the appearance that, yeah, you're pretty well off. But my main question is, do you need this stuff? Can you be happy off of non-material things? Let's say maybe having some experiences instead of buying a nice sports car or getting the biggest diamond. Do you actually need the newest iWatch or iPhone or Samsung Galaxy S whatever when your current device of whatever you want to compare that to works perfectly fine? Do you actually need something new? And I'm not saying to never buy anything that is a gift from you to you either. Sometimes it's okay to indulge and get, a gift for yourself. But it's always important to ask, do you really need it? And I think what I'm really trying to get at here is the concept of minimalism. Now, there is a documentary about this concept on Netflix currently called Minimalism, a documentary about the important things. Now, I would say that it is a must-watch at least once for everyone. So, in this documentary, the people are a little bit hardcore, to say the least, on trying to purge materialistic things from their life. But I think that it speaks to some important things that we as human beings should strive to follow, some basic kind of ground rules. And one of the main things that's said pretty early on in this documentary is that we, I guess a majority of us, are living our lives depending on the space that we've got rather than creating our space to fit our lives. But the concept of minimalism isn't just about reducing the amount of tables and chairs and furniture in your household and the size of your house, let's say. It's also about going into your closet and assessing, do you really need 20 sweatshirts? Do you need 40 t-shirts? I think a lot of us are in the boat of, if you actually thought about it, you could get away with probably axing or getting rid of half of your wardrobe and still be okay. Still have the things that you need for different events. You can still have something to wear to a cocktail party, or if you're chilling on a Saturday night at home by yourself, which is something that they cover in the minimalism documentary. And they talk a lot about what's called Project 333. Maybe people have heard this before. It's been pretty mainstream starting back in the 2011-ish time frame. It's basically a challenge where, or it's a minimalism fashion challenge where you have to or pick 33 items, and that's it, and wear just those 33 items for 3 months. Which, if I'm being 100% real with everyone, would be pretty difficult for me to do. As I'm sure a lot of people are in that same boat. Where I know if I went through every piece of clothing, accessories, shoes that I own, I can come up with an excuse to keep it, or a scenario in which I would wear it. No matter how obscure or how far-fetched it may seem, I would definitely still try to rationalize why I have every single thing that I own. So for me personally, I use the rule of, have you worn it within the last year? And if not, then you should get rid of it. I realize that it's very easy for me to say, and I have to constantly remind myself to try and not acquire things or get things, buy things that I won't use. So it's easier if the sooner you start, the easier it will become over time. And I think if I had to end with one message, it would be that you don't need material things to live a fulfilling life. Material things shouldn't be the main source of happiness. Just because you own 5 Maseratis doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else. We need to start being materialistic in the true sense of the word. And by that I mean that we need to stop worrying about the social status that certain material things might appear to give us, and start caring about the utility the things we buy or acquire will bring us, and thus answering the question, do you really need it? And now we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be having a panel discussion on, should we be worried about how rapidly Amazon is growing? All right, so welcome to the panel portion of the show. Today we have Sean Carpenter, prospective medical student, currently at the University of Kentucky. Go Wildcats. Sean, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And from the city of Midland, Cameron Taylor, concerned and active citizen. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Travis.
All right, so today we're going to talk about Amazon and make hopefully a consensus on, should we be scared? Should we not be scared? Should we continue to buy from them? Is the 5% cash back on my Prime Amazon credit card still,
wow.
is that still something I should be hanging on to? So
5% cash
yes,
back?
5% cash back.
These guys, they can do stuff other places can't.
It's true, they can't. That's true. It's very true. Let's get down to business. Should we allow Amazon to compete in every market unhindered? Because to me, it seems like they are vertically integrating. They're trying to take over the distribution of the products that we're buying from them, as well as reaching outward into food. They're expanding horizontally, and then are they going to globally take over the world, I guess is the worst case scenario, right? But thoughts?
I mean, haven't they kind of already globally taken over the world?
You're not wrong.
I mean, yeah, they're definitely
You'd be hard pressed to say that, what market are they not competing in right now? I mean, they do movies, they're producing their own content, they have everything that you could possibly ever want to buy, from electronics to grocery.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean they're coming after everything, and it's not like, I think a lot of people think of Amazon as like a commerce company, like a company where you go to their site and they send you like goods. But I mean they're looking to expand more than just into other industries, more than just commerce and retail. I mean, like Sean said, they're producing their own content now. Amazon spent $4.5 billion last year on content alone for their programming.
Right, which is compared to what of
I mean, HBO spent $2 billion last year in content. ABC spent $4 billion. The only company that spent more last year in terms of their like television and movie content was Netflix at like $6.7 billion. So like when you can take a non-core industry, like nobody associates Amazon with a movie or a television.
Right, they're streaming
industry.
services, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you think of is, oh, you can buy books, right?
Right,
That's
yeah.
the first thing I think of. And then all the other auxiliary stuff. E-commerce. Like you said.
Yeah. But when you can take, the change in your pocket and all of a sudden compete on the same level with the folks who are, the big time players in that industry with Netflix and HBO, I mean, that's pretty dramatic. And and they're coming after everything. I mean, in 2016, they agreed to a deal with Boeing to lease 20 747 cargo jets. To me, that sounds like they're going to start doing some of their big transportation via the air. I think they're coming after all sorts of stuff. So it's not just commerce and it's not just retail, even though everybody kind of associates that with Amazon.
What I found interesting is like you compare, Amazon's content spending versus like ABC's, but like, that's not really like a fair comparison, because like the fair comparison would be comparing Amazon to Disney, right? Because ABC is just a sub company of Disney, right?
Sure, right.
And I bet you that Disney content wise probably like quadrupled Amazon's content range.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
Because
true.
and you're kind of making an apples to oranges comparison for sure.
But I don't think so with like HBO and Netflix.
No, not.
For
there's
sure.
certainly that's right.
When you think
That's
of
more.
like
And
streaming
Hulu and-
movies,
right, yeah. Yep.
Netflix and HBO are certainly the first to come to mind. So when you
that's
can be
fair.
in the same boat with those guys overnight, I think that's agreeing with all our points. Is that they are coming after a lot of industries.
Right. Oh, it's so. Sean, did you have something else to add?
No, that's fine. I just like thought the comparison was interesting.
Yeah, it is. I guess something else to say is like, it's not bad now, but it's like, if you watch The Walking Dead or some other zombie show, it's like at the beginning, there's like 2 zombies and like, we can shoot them in the head, but like no one does, right? And then it turns into, oh, everyone's dead. There's billions of zombies and Rick is teaching Carl how to hunt in the woods still. So it's like, is it something that's going to be a problem later? Because it seems like it's ramping up to what Standard Oil was back in 1904. Just to throw some numbers out there. Standard Oil controlled 91% of the production and 85% of the final sales of oil produced in this country. So refined oil.
Yeah.
In the United States. So.
Getting to the idea of like, monopolies and is Amazon going to like jack the prices up on everything? Like we're not seeing that right now. Like,
right. Not yet. Right.
Yeah, certainly not yet. And maybe we won't see that, but Amazon is, they're the lowest price out there and they're forcing the competitors to lower their prices. We can get to that in a minute, but yeah, I don't think right now we're seeing Amazon be a monopoly because like they can't, because there is too much competition at the moment.
Correct. At the moment.
I think where the problem comes in is that Amazon gets treated differently on Wall Street because they don't turn a profit. They made a $1 billion profit last year after bringing in $120 billion of revenue, whereas Facebook brought in $20 billion of revenue and turned an $11 billion profit. So like, Amazon is 6 times the size in terms of revenue of Facebook, but they're only pulling in an 11th of the profits. But Wall Street doesn't seem to care. People just keep pumping money into Amazon, and it's going to be the first $1 trillion company. So they get to play by a bit of different rules. Like Kroger can't go out and turn basically a net zero profit. Otherwise, they're going to get slammed by the investors. But Amazon seems to play by a different set of rules in that ballpark. For sure. And what that allows them to do is it allows them to pump all of their profits back into research and back into different industries like 747 cargo jets or
what have you.
Yeah, streaming. Yeah. And so they get to play by a set of different rules because Wall Street just loves them.
Sean?
Yeah, I think they're in like still this period of like rapid growth, right? Like we don't they haven't hit their max yet. They're like top level. So like it's not surprising to me that they're like the company is like relatively new. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
like,
for sure.
like when you're comparing it to like Kroger, like I mean, I think Kroger's like, I don't know how old Kroger is off the top of my head, but I would guess like at least 50 years old.
Yeah, Kroger's been around a while. Yeah.
So it's 25 years
Right.
old.
So
Yeah.
like it makes sense that like, you know, Kroger's probably not experiencing much rapid growth, if growth at all, right?
Right, yeah.
So like it kind of makes sense that, I mean, you know, companies like this, when you compare them, they're like, well, they get to play by a different set of rules. I'm like, well, they're in like a different stage. They're basically like they were just born, basically. I mean, like they're still growing.
Right.
So-
And they're definitely, well, and part of it is like they're definitely a disruptor to the status quo. And some people definitely didn't know how the hell to handle them. So I think that's how they've been, that's also a factor in how they've been able
Yeah.
to rapidly grow so fast. And I want to come back to the point of, you know, how Amazon has its investors. They Jeff Bezos must be very good at pitching his vision, because the investors don't seem to care that they're not.
They don't make a
They don't
profit.
make a profit.
Yeah.
He's putting everything back into the company, and I don't think, at least from my perspective, you can't blame Jeff Bezos and Amazon for that. I mean,
No.
you know, right? It's like, okay, you know, okay, Kroger, you want to
They've got
compete?
a- they've got a
Get your
great
investors in line too, right?
Yeah.
Like, but that's
Yeah.
also going back to like they're a disruptor in a lot of realms, not just e-commerce. Right?
Well,
It's
yeah,
like,
and that's the thing.
it's a
is
whole
that-
different mindset completely for corporate America, right?
They have a product that can be distributed, you know, across the entire world with an internet connection, and
Right.
and because they have so many, they're in so many different fields. Yeah, of course they're going to be, you know, bigger than Kroger, but Kroger's just, you know, one industry or one corporation that's trying to compete with Amazon, but it's, you know, kind of hard to do if you're Kroger, because you know you don't have an advertising service that makes $500 million a year. You don't have a streaming service. You know, it's
You're not diversified enough to like
Yeah, you're a grocery
pull
store.
money from different areas if you need to pump up another area.
Right, yeah.
Although I will say, Kroger having a streaming service would be pretty interesting. I would never probably
see.
buy it.
I can't stand Kroger. Kroger sucks. I just think Kroger is like so behind the times and just. I don't know. See, I think they're the Walking Dead. I'm like, you guys are gonna be zombies. You guys are the Sears of 2018.
Yeah.
I
But that's a whole nother podcast episode.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like Kroger doesn't even have curbside service yet. Like, you know, Amazon's friggin' dropping groceries off in your car
Via drone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like they've tried to make some pretty big changes though. Like recently, like have you guys ever used ClickList before?
No.
No.
Okay, well, like ClickList is like you pay $5, they go and get all your groceries that you add online to a list, and then they put it in your car for you.
Oh,
so instead of
oh,
spending
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
at the
great.
store, you can drive up and pay an extra $5 onto your order and have everything put into you. And like, I don't know, for me, like, $5 definitely worth 90 minutes of my time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's true. It's a good point. So,
Walmart and Meijer do that too. They do it for free, but
so from, I guess, another perspective of just another thing you don't associate very much with Amazon because it's not in the title is the Washington Post and how Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post.
oh, boy.
So,
yeah.
you know, is that's another potential. It's maybe not a red flag, but maybe like a yellow-green flag at the moment of.
Well,
so can
The Washington Post is arguably. I think I don't know, maybe not arguably. I think it's probably like the second, or certainly like top 5 most influential newspaper in the country. You know, after the New York Times.
right.
I think probably that's, you know, and I mean the Washington Post has a pretty significant impact. You know, so like the cynic's interpretation could be like, well, you can't buy the New York Times because
You can't.
it's owned by too many different family members who basically have like a death pact with each other that you can't sell off your shares. But the Washington Post was for sale, and I mean the cynic's view could be like that he bought the Washington Post to control the narrative and to help lobby Washington to, you know, keep the government off of Amazon's back. We haven't seen that so much. It's certainly, I know President Trump has a lot of thoughts on it, but that's kind of a whole nother.
Well, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah, but he's kind of got a vendetta against Amazon and Jeff Bezos, I think personally, but that's a different.
Yeah.
That's a different wormhole.
Different discussion. Yeah, yeah. Different rabbit hole to go down for sure. Yeah, it's worth asking the question, right? It's like
it's not a conflict of interest.
It's not yet, right? But it's like, could you see?
But you're never going to see like a negative
Amazon.
Editorial out of Washington Post about Amazon,
right?
Yeah, obviously. I don't know. These same like links established are like pretty much in almost like every city in America, right? Like, usually like the major entrepreneur in a city will own part of a newspaper or part of a news outlet. Everybody's trying to do the same. I don't really see it as like an issue. Like, I get that it has like a high impact, but I don't know.
Fair enough. It's worth asking the question. I don't think it's a big deal at all at the moment. Yeah. It's just like, it's probably nothing.
I just think if we get to a point where the question starts being asked, and I think it should be asked of like, should the government step in and sue Amazon over, violation of antitrust laws? I think that question is an interesting one to ask. I think if at some point we reach that moment where, an attorney general, decides to pursue a lawsuit against them, I think Jeff Bezos kind of reached into his pocket, pulled out the change, and was like, let me see if I can, buy something that will help influence that narrative.
Yeah. And it kind of all comes back to, if they're not, I think Jeff Bezos is smart enough to try and avoid any sort of inkling of antitrust, right? Anybody sniffing it, right? Yeah. So I think he's smart enough to try and circumvent that somehow. And especially since companies recently, I think the definition has changed of like what a monopoly is a little bit, or how the regulators tend to see it. All these big name mergers, a little bit of an aside, all these big companies that are merging, like Time Warner and
AT&T.
And AT&T, a big one. And before that, I believe it was Time Warner and Comcast were trying to get together. And it's not so much economic power and market share so much as
Dow DuPont.
Well, yeah, right. There's that too, right?
Yeah.
But that's a little bit different in that they're spinning off and breaking up. But the real thing is, so Amazon's not jacking up the prices, like you said before. They're not trying to undercut someone else's prices to the point of it not being unfair. Like, they're undercutting it. They're taking a loss in undercutting prices just to drive out competition.
They can't at this point. There is too much competition at this point. I think for me, like, the big thing with Amazon is that they have the potential to destroy so many jobs. And I think that's like a big concern. Like, you can walk into an Amazon store today, and formerly a Whole Foods store, and pick up your groceries and walk out, and it charges your Prime membership. And that's super convenient for consumers and great for investors because, people are going to start shopping there. My issue, though, is like, what about the cashiers that are making $12 an hour, or the people that I go and see at Meijer who have the pin that they've been there for 20 some years at Meijer,
right? They're nicely saying hello to you, right?
Yeah, well, or
that too.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I can get around somebody not saying hello to me, but I think, my bigger concern is like, it's going to be a jobs killer, and then you see them leasing these planes from Boeing. And you're like,
so what does that say for the post office?
Yeah, well, what does that say for DHL and UPS and FedEx and like, autonomous vehicles are on their way and
when do they start undercutting FedEx's prices for delivering stuff?
Right. And I think that's Amazon's. I love Amazon. I love Alexa. I love the prices. I like the 2-day shipping. That's awesome. And they're certainly disrupting a lot of industries. My issue is that if you have, a mom and a dad who work at Walmart and, each of them make 35 grand a year, that's a middle-class family that there are 3.5 million cashiers in America that do that as a full-time job. What are we doing with those jobs? And I don't think it's a stretch to imagine Amazon being like, Why would we use FedEx when we could
do it ourselves? I mean, it makes
buy a bunch of autonomous
it makes
vehicles.
sense. Like from a capitalism standpoint, it totally makes sense.
Those are the next steps.
And you can't fault them for that.
No, I'm not faulting them for that at all.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is a genius, but I think like there needs to be a question asked of like at what point do we say that this is a threat to economy, like a big threat? Because it's not only killing jobs in places like Walmart. Walmart's a company that can actually compete with Amazon, and probably what you'll end up seeing a duopoly of Walmart versus Amazon. Where Walmart
and everybody else gets trampled underfoot.
Yeah, Meijer. I mean, Meijer is a nice regional company. I love Meijer, located in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Shout out.
Yeah, but Meijer's getting crushed by Walmart and Amazon because Meijer can't lower their prices enough. Right. I walk into Meijer. Milk is so fucking cheap up here. It's $1.06 at Walmart up here to buy milk. But Meijer lowered their prices for like a month, but couldn't keep it up. And milk at our Meijer up right now is all the way up at $1.50, which I know for like a lot of folks, especially in Columbus, that's dirt cheap.
Sean, how's the milk down in Lexington? Sean, is the milk okay?
It varies, from like that.
My point is, smaller companies like Meijer are not going to be able to. I mean, they're going to get crushed, and then all our folks in town here who work at the Meijer, they're going to be looking for work.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
I see your point about like the jobs, but like, see, I would like make the opposite argument and say that like Amazon will in turn be much more of a job creator than it will be a destroyer, because like.
How
like,
so?
Okay, well, for like multiple examples, one, they're looking to build the new headquarters, which is supposed to be like 50,000 jobs, right? And they narrowed it down to like 20 different cities. There's a variety of cities that, they're all mostly like Midwest, East Coast kind of cities that they could add new jobs in. So like you have all those new jobs for people who have to work at Amazon. Well, all of a sudden those people need new places to live. They need new places to eat, all of these kinds of things. I think it kind of has like a trickle-down effect. That being said, also, like all of their fulfillment centers, they go up every week. They're building a fourth one in Columbus. They have 4 in Columbus. So, like that is where you're getting like kind of replacing some of like these lower level jobs where you consider a like cashier type role, or somebody who has the background or experience as a kind of enough on their resume to get a job as a cashier at like Kroger or Meijer or someplace like this, or Whole Foods. Right, like they could be repurposed and work in a fulfillment center. So like, I see the concern for like outcompeting the market. If like Meijer all of a sudden goes down, well, all of a sudden wherever the Meijers were, like they're gonna need like people bought food from those Meijers, so like people still need to buy food and all of these kind of things. So they'll have to build more buildings. Like I don't know. Right. I think it's all trade-off.
I mean the thing with the fulfillment centers is that a lot of them, especially not around holiday season, a lot of them are stocked almost exclusively with robots. And this is a bigger issue than just Amazon automation.
It's definitely not just Amazon.
Yeah, but sure.
I mean, anybody who has a warehouse, Walmart too, right?
Yeah. I mean, but automation is coming for a lot of jobs, and Amazon, I think, is death riding the horse. Riding the pale horse with hell following with it. I think a lot of those jobs at the fulfillment centers are, they're taken over by robots. And the thing with I'm glad you brought up HQ too. I mean, you just see cities just...
Oh, they've fallen over themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they are so obsequious to the needs of Amazon. It's unreal. Like, you see Chicago offering to pay all of the payroll taxes for all of the employees. Like what are you... I get that you want these good paying jobs, which like an HQ too, like they're not hiring cashiers at the HQ too, but and you want all these good jobs, and I'm sure Chicago wants that, but like I just see these city governments and these mayors just kissing the ring of Jeff Bezos and bending the knee in servitude. Like, you're gonna pay all of those 50,000 employees payroll taxes? Like, are you nuts, Chicago? Like, nobody else gets that kind of advantage. Not Kroger, not Meijer, not Walmart. And, paying taxes, paying taxes, that's a whole nother thing. But, like, they're going to be getting such breaks. And, like, the guy at the top is not the company that needs the brakes, you know? And especially if you want to maintain competition, like offering to pay Amazon's payroll taxes, which like, and like any city could use those taxes. Like that's a lot of change. I think that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, if your city doesn't give the tax break, like another city will, you know what I mean? So like it's all just like
it's a race to the bottom. It's exactly what that is. It's a race.
Supply
It's a race
demand.
to put it.
But like what you get out of it is like you stimulate your local economy like so much. It has a huge impact. To like put it into perspective, when LeBron James moved from Miami to Cleveland, Ohio, he brought an additional $175 million worth of revenue. He's a basketball player.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, think about bringing 50,000 jobs to your city, what that has to do in comparison. Like, yeah, you're giving the tax breaks, but, like, those people still got to buy food. There's tax there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these things. Yeah, maybe you're not getting their tax off their revenue, or you're giving them some sort of break on their property tax or something like that. But, like, I mean, there's other ways. It like they wouldn't do it if they didn't get something out of the deal. You know what I mean?
Sure,
It's true. I mean, you can't fault them again for putting it out there, right? And then pretty much just asking the question. Then everybody's like, oh, you know, dropping their drawers for Amazon. You know?
I mean, I think the fact that they're building a second world headquarters raises the question of like, are they too big? Like Kroger doesn't need a second world headquarters outside of Cincinnati.
You're right. It's a good question. However, it's like the numbers of market share don't back up like are they too big, right? Because like so coming back to Standard Oil, they were at 64% market share when they were being broken up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is Amazon's defense.
Right. And it's also, exactly. It's a defense for Amazon. And then but coming back to the point of the breaks that they're getting, like Standard Oil got hella breaks from the railroad companies and all the auxiliary companies that made the sales for Standard Oil because they were so big. With this, it's more of like an implication of in the future, Amazon's going to be huge.
Yeah.
So it's more of like an implied future thing, so not exactly like Standard Oil, but they're going to be huge one day, and I think that's another reason why people are bending over backwards.
If you were to break up Amazon, I mean, I think there are like a lot of different ways you could go with it. Like there are like a lot of different industries that Amazon has that you could, split off into separate companies. I mean, it doesn't even have to be, 34 companies like it was with Standard Oil. I mean, it could be 3 or 4 companies. You could put, the streaming services with the, Alexa services, and you could put the commerce services with the grocery services. You could have the advertising business be its own company.
It's true. Let's get to that in a sec.
Sure.
So back to the money though coming in. Sean said with LeBron bringing in that much money for the Cleveland area, I think it just to kind of finish off this point of we really don't know. We don't have the numbers in front of us. It's pure speculation on are they going to be in the
I mean, we can all agree that it's going to be a big economic
boom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, for sure. It's just when you look at the balance sheet, does the breaks, does the added tax from sales tax and other things, what have you, more people coming there, right? Then you have people paying property tax, state income tax, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Does that outweigh the breaks that they're giving them for? And I mean, these breaks are not for just 5 years. I mean, it's like you're talking a decent amount of time. I don't have the numbers exactly.
Yeah.
But
a long time.
So it's,
I mean, the other thing about HQ2 is that you're gonna have a lot of changes happen to that area. Like, I mean, a lot of people think that it's headed toward Northern Virginia, particularly be close to DC.
Washington
just
Post.
another reason why, why would Jeff Bezos want to move closer to DC? It begs the question. But, I mean, that area, wherever it lands, it's going to fundamentally change that area. You add 50,000 employees making 6 figures a year. I mean, a lot of the people who live there, their cost of living is going to go up quite a bit. Their housing's going to go up a lot, for renters. So you're going to see a lot of changes, I think, in that city. So, it's going to bring a lot of economic impact. It's going to bring taxes, even if local governments are bending over backward and offering all the different tax breaks that they want, it's going to bring a lot of change to wherever it lands.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, a lot of these other like huge companies have like multiple headquarters like this, and I don't know. I feel like people don't make as big of a deal of it or like concern for. I mean, like Google has like essentially a second headquarters in Chicago. Hardly any people know that, and it did exactly what you said. It drove up housing prices and everything around there. But it's Google, so like Chicago wanted Google, right? Like
yeah.
I mean, Google, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook are all sort of like.
We kind of have a blind eye now just because they're already so big, right?
Yeah.
It's Amazon's the one who's like growing so rapidly. It's like everybody's eyes are on them.
Yeah.
So I guess one kind of like final what if question on the Amazon thing before we kind of go a little bit on a different related but different topic is, so let's say they're at 90% market share, and Cameron already kind of started down this path of, so what would you do like to break them up? So let's say they get sued for violating the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Yeah.
How do you split them up?
Well, I mean, that would be up to people who, have master's degrees and work at Brookings Institutes, more than just concerned citizen Cam Taylor. But I think there are a lot of different ways you could go with it. I mean, they have so many different industries. Their data collection industry, which is a whole nother.
That's a whole nother.
I mean, that's a whole nother,
can of worms.
You think Meyer can compete with with the level of data that Amazon has on all its Prime users, which is 55% of U.S. households? Yeah, I mean, so anyway, yeah, I think there are a lot of different things you could do with it. You can spin off their streaming industry and combine that with Alexa. I think that is, makes a logical pairing. Can put their ad company, combine that with their data company. I mean, there are a lot of different things that you could do, or you could split it up 34 ways and see where the places end up. I think what's interesting about like the Standard Oil case is that like we look back and we see Amco and Exxon and Mobil and BP and Marathon, and we see these companies, and I think a lot of us would kind of be like, it would be ridiculous to combine all of those companies into one. And I think that could be a place that we stand 50 or 100 years from now. Be like, wow, I can't imagine all these companies being under one umbrella.
At Real Sean Carp, what do you think?
Sorry, I cut out for a second, but I'm back. I'm back again.
We'll have to get you in person here next time, Sean.
That's right. We'll fly you up.
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
put it on the company card that I don't have yet.
I only fly first class, so hopefully you can afford.
I know
that.
you're not a cheap date.
Yeah. I mean, you could do it like a multitude of ways. I don't know. I mean, you could arguably make the case that like just on their commerce section alone, that is like a ton of companies dug in there, right? Like, right. I mean, they sell groceries, they sell sporting equipment. They sell electronics. That's like Dick's, Kroger, and Best Buy all in one right there. You know what I mean? Like there's a multitude of ways you could do it. And then you start going into all of their like hosting services and like, I don't know. It's not crazy to think that there's 50 or 60 companies worth of market share in there.
Yeah, it's a valid point. Yeah, it's more of like it's very abstract at this point, right? Because it's nowhere near. It's not near that point where you'd need to intervene.
Well, and there's not. I don't think there's any momentum.
Right.
It.
Yeah. No. I mean, right.
I think
the consumers are on board.
Oh yeah. Everybody looks at Amazon as the darling of the stock market of everything. I mean, of grocery. Like I said, as consumers, I think we love it. I just think that it's starting to become a Leviathan size, and but you're not gonna get any movement out of Washington.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, not in its current state.
Yeah, sure. Sean, closing remarks?
I mean,
Amazon?
like in terms of their size, I mean, I think the interesting thing is that like, I feel like they're challenging a lot of other company structures right now and like how they're doing things. Like I think long-term wise, like their rapid growth will, to us as consumers, be beneficial because I think that they're going to challenge a lot of these other like major companies to like rethink how they do things. And,
that's true, for sure.
At the end, I think it's going to benefit everybody.
That's true.
Yeah.
Once people start to get the hang of, oh, this is how we have to operate to compete.
Yeah, like
I think we all win, right? I think
it's like new.
Consumers,
Right?
right? We all win.
And investors.
Yeah, we haven't seen somebody like vertically and horizontally integrate this quickly ever before, but like this might spawn a series of companies that learn how to do this really well. You know what I mean?
Assuming they don't get bought out instantly by Walmart or Amazon.
When you get to be this size, you can,
right.
Eliminate threats to yourself.
Right.
But
so it's just stuff to be mindful of, have a couple of open eyes towards. So now moving into something kind of related to Amazon, but not really so much like the capitalistic system in general. Just a broad question of, there can be an argument that I've seen made where it's like, well, why would you try to regulate Amazon? They prop up small businesses, or they have people. If you consider people selling on their small businesses, and then so then that kind of spider webs from some of the arguments I've seen into, what if you didn't regulate capitalism at all, like a capitalistic society? Is there an argument to be made that you should?
Yeah, if you didn't regulate it at all, then Napster never would have been a thing because Microsoft was trying to buy it at the time that it got broken up in '97. And then you wouldn't have the kind of streaming services in terms of music like Spotify that we have now. Like Napster is how you ended up with iTunes, which is how you ended up with LimeWire, which is how we got Spotify, which is how we now have Amazon Music. I don't know. That's a pretty, that's just one historical example I can think of.
It was very broad, but
you got to regulate stuff to some extent. Capitalism works pretty well, but if you take it to its logical end conclusion, just complete laissez-faire, that's how you get stuff like Great Depression, and that's how you get all the wealth concentrated in 1%. And capitalism thrives on a robust middle class. I think that's the key to success with capitalism.
I think some level of regulation is good. I just I don't know. I feel like we're always just worried about everybody's gonna get too big, and then we're they're gonna jack up all the prices and blah 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 and all this stuff. And I just I don't know. I think it all figures itself out, right? Because the fact of the matter is at some point, if Amazon's not meeting the consumer's needs, we'll find the next Amazon.
Yeah,
right.
With your wallet, right?
Yeah, well, we'll find it. Because somebody else will come in and they'll find a way to undercut them, or they'll find some other way to be better, and we'll adopt it. That's just how it works. I'm all for I think there's limits, right?
For sure.
If all of a sudden Amazon has 98% of the market share, I think we're probably a little fucked. But I don't know. I think the whole thing is just people are really intelligent in today's society, and I feel if we feel we're being taken advantage of or abused, it will come to light, and we will actively act against it without really anybody having to do it for us.
Yeah, I do agree. I think my take on that is to be more reactionary versus proactive, right? So right now, if
you want to be reactive versus proactive.
Yeah, correct. So to a certain extent, it's not a couple years after the fact. If you obviously have to wait till the behavior is exhibited by Amazon, if they're being a monopoly, you're going to be able to tell, I would assume.
Yeah.
Right? And then you regulate versus, oh, I don't know, it could get bad, let's do it right now.
Sure.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I think everybody kind of would agree with that, I would hope. To not try and shut down. It's not just Amazon, right? Any company who's getting bigger right now, but isn't to the point where they're threatening the consumer by
Amazon is definitely not threatening the consumer, and I don't think that's my issue with Amazon at all. I don't think certainly at this point, and to Sean's point, possibly never will it be a threat to the consumer. I think it's just a threat to a lot of decent
other companies.
Jobs.
Yeah, and jobs. Well, and thus
which
jobs,
comes about from the companies.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's only a threat to smaller companies who refuse to adapt. We always have to adapt. That's how the market works, right? so like,
I mean, that's capitalism. Right?
you
You
know,
have to react.
some of these like smaller companies, like, yeah, they might go out of business because Amazon put them out of business, but like some other company will take its place, one that's willing to, I don't know, do online sales or do some of the kind of things that will allow them to compete. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's like, no matter what era or time period you look at, there's always like constant turnover of these small businesses because
true,
some
right?
of
I
them
mean,
figured out how to
businesses-
adapt and some of them
Right.
don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I think, my issue is that it's just coming after so many industries and coming after
so
not.
sudden.
Yeah, and they're not. I mean, Kroger is not a small company. It's not a small business. Neither is, UPS. And not that they've come after UPS at the moment. I just think that they follow a logical trend of like, how can we make more money, and then how can we cut costs? Like that next step is finding a way to transport their goods themselves without UPS, FedEx, or the Postal Service. And being the largest company in the world, they're going to be able. They have the ability to do that. I mean, I think that's the other thing is that like we're not talking about like a startup or a small business. I mean, Amazon's the largest company in the world.
They're far from a startup.
Yeah, I mean if anybody could take the hit, it would be them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, but I mean, like, I think contrary to popular belief, like people think that like Amazon, is trying to go to that like next logical trend, which would be like shipping their own stuff. Okay, so like let's just take that in perspective. They've never shipped their own stuff before. Like generally speaking, they don't ship their own stuff. Most of their stuff is shipped by UPS, DHL, these major shipping companies, and there's a reason for that. It's because these major shipping companies are way better at it. Like it's like saying like trying to a professional basketball player wants to go play baseball. Yeah, like it could work, but I mean, I'm not gonna put a lot of like, I'm not gonna bet on that horse. You know what I mean?
So you wouldn't have bet on Michael Jordan?
No, no, being good. I mean, like think about it.
Yeah, right.
It's like just think about it, how you met people in real life. We've all met people who are like really great at something. It's really hard to be absolutely phenomenal at more than one thing. Amazon is doing a great job of being very good at one thing, but I just don't see them developing a structure in which they all of a sudden are better at shipping stuff at a lower cost than like something like FedEx or UPS or DHL, who don't just ship stuff for Amazon, they ship stuff for every company.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
And 5 years ago, Amazon wasn't in the grocery business, and 20 years ago, Amazon was in the book business. I mean, my point being that like, yeah, we don't see it right now, but just a few years ago, they weren't trying to disrupt the grocery industry, and here they are forcing Walmart to do curbside, drop off, and Kroger do the Kroger Click It. I think that's what it was called.
yeah, and I mean, I think moving forward, they'll probably invest in those kinds of areas.
Well,
but like
they already have invested in it. I mean, they already spent a bunch of money leasing 20 747 cargo jets from Boeing.
oh yeah, like I mean, I'm not saying that they like won't expand. Like I think they'll expand their portfolio like moving forward. But like to say that they could like knock out UPS,
Right. I think yeah, exactly, Sean. Like they're doing it for themselves, not so much to take over business, actively compete, like try to beat DHL or like FedEx's prices.
I mean, but let's be
Getting
clear.
in.
Let's be clear though. Like, if UPS lost Amazon's business,
Oh, I mean, they're losing business for sure, right?
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
They would be losing business for sure, but Amazon wouldn't be doing it under the guise of we're trying to actively compete, right? It might end up indirectly. All right, so thank you both for a good discussion. This was a good first podcast, and hopefully you guys will be alive and well when we try to do another one.
Hopefully.
Oh yeah, for sure.
No, I don't think so. Thank you to Sean. You can follow him at Sean_Carp on Twitter.
Carpenter. Sean_Carpenter.
I know. I just wanted that to catch fire. I wanted you to make another Twitter based on that. No,
Okay.
Sean_Carpenter and Cameron Taylor at Real Cam Taylor on Twitter. Our intro theme song came from royalty-free music from bensound.com. I want to say thank you to all the people tuning in to listen to this first episode, as well as to all the friends and family who helped me edit it. And with that, we'll see you next time.